Welcome back. Let's look at this question. State all the main characteristics of each function. So we're going to start with the first one. So we have this function y equals to minus 2x squared plus 4x plus 3. And because it's got the exponent of 2 or power of 2, this polynomial function is actually a quadratic function. And a quadratic function, they lead into a graph of a parabola or quadratic function graph. But before knowing everything about this function, we need to change this general form into the vertex form or standard form. And remember, the standard form is always includes the vertex and a few other characteristics. So let me remind you what the standard form is. Here it is, vertex form or standard form, y equal to a times x minus p all squared plus q, where p and q is the coordinate of the vertex v for this parabola. All right, so to do this, we have to use a method, algebraic method called completing the square method. And to just refresh your memory, this is what we're going to do. We're going to rewrite the question first, starting with the y. And then what we will do, we will have to isolate this x squared on its own without the negative 2. So we're going to factor negative 2 out of the first two terms, only the first two terms. Okay, so I'm going to factor negative 2 out of the first term, and then out of the second term, I will get just plus minus 2x, because minus 2 times minus 2x gives you positive 4x. And then I'm going to close the bracket. I'm going to just leave the 3 behind. All right. Now, you could technically go back and factor. Some teachers do that. Some students do that. They factor the leading coefficient out of every single term. You can do that. But I tend to not deal with fractions, especially for students. They have allergic reaction to fractions, as you can understand. So I try to make it as fraction friendly as possible. There's nothing wrong with fractions, but integers are better. So here it is. And then the next step here is this, that inside this bracket, we're going to complete that this binomial into a trinomial, but it has to be a perfect square trinomial by adding this specific number. We take half of the middle term. So this is the middle term right here, minus 2, the coefficient of the middle term, right? We get half of negative 2. So half of negative 2. Then we'll square that. Then we'll add it to the inside of that bracket. So half of negative 2 is negative 1. Square that. That becomes plus 1. So we're just added 1 to inside of that bracket. And we're going to leave the plus 3 where it is. But here is the next step. We just can't add stuff to one side of the equation. This is an equation. Okay, whatever we add to one side, we have to add to other side, or we have to balance the one side. Whatever we add, we have to take away. All right. Now, here's the thing. This is the part that you have to be careful. Now, in this case, even though it looks like that we are adding 1 to this side, but actually we are not adding 1. We are adding minus 2 times positive 1. So we're adding, you can say adding, negative 2. And to neutralize that, we have to add positive 2, because negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. We practically add 0 to one side, to the right-hand side. All right, and this, if you look at the inside of this bracket now, so x squared minus 2x plus 1, this is a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so let's rewrite that now. So we're going to rewrite it as y equals minus 2 And then x squared minus 2x plus 1 is actually x minus 1 all squared. This is a binomial squared. When you expand x minus 1 all squared, you will get this trinomial, this perfect square trinomial. All right. And then plus 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay. Now this form, it matches this form. And let me bring the window down that matches our vertex form. Now we can read off information from the equation. So first thing first, we know that the vertex is 1 and 5. That's number 1. The next thing is that the graph is inverted. That means reflection. So this negative in front, that's a reflection over the x-axis. So let's make sure that we write that. So this is reflection over the x-axis. So graph will look like upside down graph, parabola. Remember this U-shaped graph. What else we do know? We have this 2 in front. Let's deal with the 2. So this 2. So the negative gives you the orientation of the graph, but the 2, that is the expansion, vertical expansion. So that's the vertical expansion by a factor of 2. And that's the last thing we need to do for this function, this quadratic function, that gives you all the characteristics of this specific function. All right. You can go ahead and use this information to graph it freestyle or use Desmos or any other graphing program that you like. I hope this lesson was helpful, this example. Come back for more examples and more lessons in math, geometry, and trigonometry. Be well.